so fun.
No, no, my heart and I. And welcome to, excuse me, the third mini panel of Marginalia Live 2026. I'm your host, Jackie Lee Morrison. Thank you so much for being here, whether you're tuning in live or catching up later with the recording. This is a special mini session as Claire was having tech issues last night and couldn't join us for You Should Be Reading Kid Lit. So I'm really thrilled to be able to be back with a computer this time to chat all things Kid Lit. Claire will be doing a giveaway too, so stay to the end to find out how to win. So let me introduce Claire Mabey. Claire Mabey is a Wellington-based writer, founder of Verb Wellington and Litcrawl Wellington, book reviewer for RNZ and ABC's The Bookshelf podcast, and books editor at The Spinoff. Her debut novel, The Raven's Eye Runaways, was published by Allen and Unwin in 2024, and the sequel, The Raven's Eye Rebellion, was published this past April. Her first picture book, Cass and the Beast, is out August 2026. So welcome, Claire.
Thanks, Jackie. Thanks.
I've got all the sound effects today.
Yeah,
no, I'm so sad that last night didn't work out, but that's all good because it means we get to have like a little one-on-one now, which I love. If you're watching live, which no one is at the moment, but I'm gonna do a little reminder on Instagram that we're live now. But if there are anyone pops in later, have questions for the panel, please write them in the comments, as we've got a question for Claire rather, and I'll go through them in the last 5 minutes of our session. We're going to do a quick session today. It's going to be about 20-25 minutes long, so let's get into it. So Claire, can you please tell our audience what drew you to writing Kid Lit and where it started for you?
That is a good question. So I have always been a big Kid Lit reader. And I kind of never really stopped reading it. And then when I started to write, just got the bug, the urgency to write, I started writing, and this 12-year-old character just popped into my head. And so I started writing from that point of view, and I found it really easy to go there. And I think one of the reasons is that 12, around about kind of 10 to 12, is when I was the most voracious reader I've ever been. And when reading completely transported me quite effortlessly. So I think because I was starting to write fantasy, it felt very natural to write from these young characters, and really fun. I just had so much fun being back there and quite enchanted by the process of it and by the world building of it through that 12-year-old mind. So yeah, so it just kind of happened that way. I didn't really intend to at all, but I just kind of can't help it.
I also absolutely, excuse me, love that age range. I think that is probably my favorite age range for kids' books. So what can you give us like a quick blurb about the two Raven's Eyes books, and then maybe also a quick blurb about Cass?
Yeah, sure. So the Ravens books are set in another world, so they're kind of high fantasy. But I have always been fascinated by the medieval period and by kind of early books, so the kind of handwritten books in that monastic setting, and then the early printing presses and the kind of restrictions and piracy and the kind of politics of books in that medieval to Renaissance period. So I've drawn a lot from that to create this world. And basically, the big problem of the world is you're not allowed to read. It's very restricted. You're not allowed to own books unless you are a scholar. And my 3 children, who are the kind of heroes, are not scholars at all. One is a bookbinder. Another is just a really great friend, Buckle, and he kind of floats around, and my readers really love Buckle. And then Lee is what's known as a stranger. So she is in possession of a very strange magic, and it's the same magic that runs through trees in this world. So trees are quite magical as well. And basically it's a story of oppression. The kids discover a really terrible secret about their world and then go about trying to kind of challenge it. So the first book is discovering this terrible secret, and the second book is how do they challenge it. And so they're two quite different books in some ways, like tonally. So the first one does get quite dark, and the second one I would say is more triumphant. And really fun. I had heaps of fun with the second one. There's like a new kind of magical layer that opens up in that second one that I loved, and also a new character who you do meet in the first book, but you might have assumptions about her that are completely flipped in the second book. So so that's the Ravens books, and then Cass and the Beast. This one is a picture book, so it's really short, and it's about a little girl called Cass, and she lives in a town where there's rumors about a beast, and she keeps hearing stories about how terrible it is, and she just decides she doesn't believe the stories, and so she goes out on her own at nighttime to find the beast, and she has an adventure, and I won't spoil anything by saying what happens. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's giving me Gruffalo vibes.
Yeah, it was a really weird experience of writing for me because I just sat down and the story popped out whole, and that never happens to me. So it was a really it's quite a special story for me.
Yeah. Well, I really want to talk about Cass and the Beast because I want to talk about picture books. But first, I want to ask because the Raven's Eye books, I've read the first one. The second one is on my TBR right now. I'm going to get to read it when I finish the festival. But it really has equal rights, questions of power, and discrimination at its core. And like you said, those are quite dark topics. So why do you think those have resonated with young people?
I think I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think when I was about 10, I remember vividly realizing that the world of adults that you're kind of supposed to think is very safe and stable was the opposite. And I remember realizing that adults did terrible things to nature and to each other, and I think that moment is quite critical in childhood, and I also think it lends itself. The other thing when I was a kid is I craved independence. Like I really wanted to like go off and explore by myself with no adults. Like I have a little brother and a little sister, and I would force them to play these wild imaginary games with me where we were like orphans and we just completely, were rulers of our own destiny. So I think there's something kind of dually interesting about the world being quite scary and truly scary, but then how do you fix it? And I think kids stories are really good at that because children have an innate logic. Like kids really know what's wrong and right. They're way more clear than adults, I think. And the imagination and capacity for adventure and challenging things and being imaginative about how they do that, that lends itself quite naturally to really adventurous stories with quite realistic or real themes. Like you can kind of tackle big stuff in children's books through these kind of metaphorical worlds. And so for me, I like stories that have grains of truth in them, but that can also feel like an expansive adventure. So there's kind of two things at play that I think are really fun. But also, I think, like, I really think children should be encouraged to be defiant. So I think these stories that kind of show children saying, hang on a minute, like this does not seem to be a good thing. What do we do about it? Like I always love stories like that, and so I love writing stories like that.
And I think that's really interesting because definitely as I think the kids books we grew up on were like that, and they were quite dark at times. Like if we think about Susan Cooper, or we
Yeah.
think about Diana Wynne Jones, I always think about the Homeward Bounders as just being like the bleakest book I've ever read in my life, and it was aimed at 10-year-olds.
Yeah.
So
And for me, it was
yeah.
the Half Men of O. Like those stories, those Morris G, that trilogy is etched into my brain, and I think it made such a big impression on me. Like this totalitarian state, and then this religious tyranny in the second book. Like, I just think he was a genius. I love those stories. And so between those books, Philip Pullman also is a big influence on me. And I'm just rereading them to my son and had forgotten how brutal that first book is. Like, Roger.
Yeah, it's so brutal.
I'd
My
forgotten,
goodness.
the depths and the violence
Yeah.
towards children.
And also
And
the separation of the soul
soul.
as
Yeah.
well. Oh.
Oh, it's so
I know, it
devastating.
stays with me.
But I think,
and I feel like, yeah, go on.
I think children read differently to adults. Like, I read that as a young person and definitely registered the gravity of it, but not in the same way as I do now. So I think children are quite good at moderating how much terror they take in, if that makes sense.
Sure. No, I agree with that. Well, let's talk about Cass and the Beast now. So congrats on your first picture book. I'm very excited to read it. How, because you've been writing obviously middle grade before this point, now how did you tackle writing for a young audience, and what do you think are the things that make picture books successful?
That is a great question, and I have to admit, when I started writing Cass, I had been trying to write picture books and struggled. And then the great Julian Marshall, who started Gecko Press, told me, think of them as tiny novels. And that just completely unlocked it for me. And so I realized, because the Cass is quite an expansive story in lots of ways. Like, there's a whole world there. But suddenly I realized I could tell her story in 600 words. And I think what makes, for me, a great picture book is the seamless integration of image and text. So I have adored working with Jill Calder, who did the illustrations, and we actually had quite a lot to do with each other, which I'm not sure is totally normal or usual. And I just love the way she's brought it to life. But I also think, for me, like, a little bit of comedy in children's books is really great. But also a sense of expansion somehow, whether it's like through the language itself or through the idea or through the emotion. So I wanted to kind of leave a reader with like some kind of expansive emotion that makes you want to go back to the beginning. And I think the test of a picture book is how many times you can read it. So I think if it's a book you feel like you just want to go back to, that's a good book, a good picture book.
Yeah, and I think as well, if I said this yesterday when I was talking to Irene and Jean, but when you can read the words and connect with the image,
Yes.
and have that full story told, that I think is so important. And I'm so excited because the illustrations look beautiful, and I know your writing is fantastic. So I'm very excited, and your blurb that you shared with us earlier as well. I think it's going to be so wonderful. So I'm excited to read it. So
I'm so glad.
I love Kidlit. I obviously love Kidlit. Why do you think, and do you agree with the statement that everyone should read Kidlit, and why do you think people beyond young people should read Kidlit?
I agree wholeheartedly. And the reason I agree is that, well, first of all, I think and talk a lot about literacy and reading for pleasure among children. And often the focus of those conversations is on the children, but I think it needs to be on the adults. Like, the reason children aren't reading as much is because adults are not reading as much. And children need a role model. Like, it needs to be normalized that reading is something that you do, and the less that happens, the less kids are going to do it. So, and I think one way, I think a lot of adults have potentially fallen out of love with reading, are quite disenchanted because we consume a lot of news on screen, and a lot of that news is not great. And I think returning to children's literature can help you return to a state of open-mindedness, adventure, of great imaginative stimulation. And I think so much of our adult world is about shutting out imagination and creativity. And I think we're really good at nurturing that in children and realizing the importance of that in children, but we forget to do that for adults. So I think, and I'm almost a conspiracy theorist around that. Like, I feel because the capitalist world needs such a workforce, doesn't really want adults to be super imaginative and spending lots of time on pleasure. So I think going back to read those stories that meant a lot to you at that time when you were the most adventurous and optimistic is good for your brain. It's good for your soul, but it's also just going to kickstart your reading habit again, because these books are not boring. They're really fun. And they will often lead you on to another book, you know, if you're into the series. So I think there's just only good things can come from reading kidlit, and they're really good books. You know, there's such good stuff out there.
Yes, I completely agree. I love reading kidlit. I mean, I have probably my shelves. You can't. My bookshelf behind me looks really weird because all the books are facing the wrong way. But that's because it's the back of the bookshelf. That's where my little study is. So everyone's always like, "Why are your books facing the wrong way?" But it's mostly kidlit. It's like I would say
Amazing.
it's probably I've got another bookshelf over here. It's maybe like half kidlit.
Wow. Yeah, it's so
Half to
good. It's
two-thirds
so
kidlit.
good.
I love
It's
it.
so good.
I love going back and reading and being invested and involved in these magical and non-magical perilous stories. And I think, like you say, literacy is so important, and it does completely go back to adults and the role models that we are for young people. Which leads me on to my next question, which is: do you think it's important for kidlit to have a moral position, and is it better or worse to do so?
That's such an interesting question. I I think that all books have an internal morality to them. Like, I don't really understand a story that doesn't have that, because there's always some sort of development. But whether or not it has to be moral as its main function, I don't think I do agree with that. Like, some of my favorite stories are not explicitly moral, but the actions of the character or the context in which they're operating has a morality to it. So I was just thinking, I read John Classen's book The Skull really recently, and I loved it because it's a really dark little book about a little girl who's running away. We don't know why she's running away or where from, but when you get a sense that she needs a safe place to hide, and she finds a skull alone in a great big hidden castle with a bottomless pit in the bottom of it that is never explained. And it's just this really excellent story that has a clear morality to it. These two creatures need a safe place and they need a friend and they find each other. But that is never explicit. It's just in the actual story and the actions of the girl, the tone, the environment. So I think I think you do have to give children hope and propulsion. I don't think you can end a book for a child on a very, very bleak, hopeless note. I don't think that would be useful, but I don't think it has to be explicitly moral either. I think it just has to
Mm.
work for the story.
Mm. That's a really great answer. That's a one because I know it's a tricky question. It's a bit of a loaded question, but no, I completely agree with that. I love that. Well, unfortunately, Claire, we are going to have to wrap up. It's been a really brief, beautiful little catch up. I'm so glad we were able to do this. So, please, could you tell the audience where they can find you and where your books are available?
Thanks for having me, Jackie, and congratulations on a really radically awesome festival. I love
Oh,
it.
thank you.
So I have a website, it's clairemabey.com, and it has information on my books. They're Cats and the Beast is out in America, the UK, Australia, and New Zealand in early August, and the others are available in New Zealand, Australia, and the UK.
Beautiful. And please do also follow Claire on Instagram. She's at Claire Mabey. And yeah, thank you again to Claire for joining me for this little catch up session. So her Instagram account is on now. If you click that, it will take you to her Instagram. Also, it's in the description box. Marginalia is a completely free festival, but if you'd like to support my mahi and help me keep doing the things that I'm passionate about, you can buy me a coffee through my, I don't know if it's Ko-Fi or Ko-fi. I always say Ko-Fi, it's probably Ko-fi. Link is on the screen now, and it's also in the description box. Claire is going to be giving away a copy of both Raven Eyes books and her new her forthcoming picture book, Cass and the Beast. So if you would like to win, then simply pop below your Instagram handle and one sentence about why you'd like to win their books, and I will pick a winner and announce it on my Instagram, which is on the screen now. So make sure that you're following me there. Our next panel is starting very shortly. It's at 1 p.m. Which is in 10 minutes, with award-winning speculative fiction authors Anthony Lapwood and Peyton for Reality Bites. So we are so excited to be able to have had this catch-up conversation with Claire, and thrilled for the rest of the festival as well. Thank you so much, Claire.
Thank you, Jackie. Thanks so much.
And I've got a little sound effect again. We're going to do another. Things that you never knew you could do until you went live. Thank you to our viewer for joining us, and enjoy the rest of the festival and enjoy the rest of your day, Claire.
You too. Have fun.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.